Yes, I am because we are. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope I'm audible enough. So, as usual, we're going to start our call with a prayer. I'm going to pray in my local language. I'm from London. And by the way, my name is Bishime Ivo. So I'm going to pray in Kinyarwanda. So let's pray. Uwiteka Mana nziza turagushimiye cyane kumenyesha turakwibutsa umukomezi mu n'umutwe yesu twita polisi tumusubiza kristo y'ikindi mu gisagandiriye kandi mu mwanya w'ikiganiro cyo kutumenyesha turakwenda cyose mu Yesu Kristo. Amen. Yes, thank you very much for everyone that joined us today for our Pan-African history call. My name is Tushime Ibrahim Sensei, and I'll be your host for today's meeting. So we are going to start off with our speakers. First, we're going to have our sister from Kenya, Christine Lekese from Kenya. Yes, Christine, can you hear us?
Hello, everyone.
Yes, hello, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. So today, we want to talk about the history of the Pan-African movement, its key figures like Kwame Nkrumah and Du Bois, and its impact on African unity. So I would like to split this into three parts. The first part is the history, the second part are the figures, and the third part is the impact on the African unity. So first things first, Pan-African movement. When we talk about Pan-African movement, this is a movement that is or was from all that time, is a movement dedicated to the establishing of independence for the African nations and cultivating unity among Black people throughout the world, regardless of whether they are on the African continent or outside of the continent. Yeah, this movement started long time between 1900 to 1923 in London and other cities. So the movement basically was to unite. Now that is the third part of the question, to unite the African people of the African ancestry, rather. So when we look at the whole thing, the Pan-African movement, basically, it was supposed, or rather it's meant for the unity of the African movement. When we come down, okay, when we look at the Pan-African movement, we come down and look at things like the AU, the African Union. All this is meant to be of unity to the African person, to the African human being. So let's look at the significant, okay, the whole topic of Pan-Africanism is very wide, as we all know. So given that we have 3 minutes, we'll just look at the overview of it. So quickly to the very important figures of Pan-Africanism. And let's look at Du Bois. Of the color line. This was made with Pan-Africanism in mind. For Du Bois, the statement that he made, the problem of the color okay, the problem of the 20th century is the problem of color line, was not confined merely to the United States. At that particular point, there was this problem, okay, I don't want to call it the problem, but there was this situation of the Negro problem that they called the Negro problem. So this statement was made with clear knowledge that many African continents are suffering or were suffering under the yoke of the European colonial rule. There was the Negro problem back in the European countries. And at that particular time, there was still the colonization going on. So actually the African people were being oppressed from all corners of the world, regardless of where you were, whether you were in Africa, whether you were outside of Africa, whether you were in the Caribbean, wherever it is that a Black person was, they were going through oppression, they were going through all those sorts of things. So when these people came together, they came together with the mind of uniting the African and giving this African person a voice, a way to stand for themselves from that to the future.
Yes,
when we look
at we have 30 seconds left.
Okay, so for my 30 seconds, the unity, like the same way I've said, the essence of Pan-Africanism was purely unity, bringing the Black people together for the prosperity of themselves, for the prosperity of us and generations to come. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. That was our sister from Kenya. Thank you, Ayambi. Yes, up next, we are going to have our brother from Tanzania, Edwin Chamba. Yes, Edwin Chamba, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Can I hear you?
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Can hear you. I think our brother is having some network issues. In the meantime, we can have our brother, Chimelo Timothy from Uganda. Yes, Chimelo, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself. Yes, Timothy, can you hear us?
Yes, hello.
Yes,
hello.
You're welcome. Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
I can hear you.
Yes, welcome.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. Yes, hello.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would like to share my views on the origin of the task was the history of Pan-African movement and the role of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and W. Du Bois. First of all, I must introduce myself. I am Timothy Chemiron Kirui from Kenya, Rift Valley. Pan-African movement, as it has been said, was meant to bring people of African descent, whether they were in or out of Africa, to unite and fight the common enemy by that time. And the common enemy was the neglect and the way the people from African ancestry were looked down upon. Remember, in Africa, we had colonialism and other evils that was meted on them. So Pan-African movement began long ago to around 17th century. To be specific, it was established in 1897 by somebody known as Henry, who was from Trinidad and Tobago. So it was meant to bring brotherhood and collaboration of people with African descent. It was also meant to bring unity to Africans. Africans were urged to unite both politically and culturally. The role of W. Du Bois in Pan-Africanism. W. Du Bois is one of the persons who is credited to have helped a lot in uniting the people of African descent. And he said, and I quote, he said that the problem of the 20th century was the problem of color line and the yoke of colonialism. And he also united the Negroes, people who had the black, or people who had the origin of African continent. And I must also say that Pan-Africanism began as a result of the trans-Atlantic slave trade, or the triangular trade, where our people, and when I say our people, I mean the African people, were taken from West Africa and to Europe and America. Yes, to Europe and America. So the role of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah is one of the pioneers. He managed to gain independence to his country in 1957, and he also united the African people. He majorly wanted the African people to be united politically and culturally. So I want to urge everyone, may the spirit of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah continue to flow in our own blood. Thank you very much. Bless you.
Yeah. Thank you for that wonderful report. Yes, up next, we are going to have our brother Edwin Chamba from Tanzania. Yes, Edwin Chamba, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yes,
can you
Edwin.
Hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you can hear me, as you said, my name is Edwin Chamba, and today I'm going to contribute about the history of Pan-African movement, its key figures, and its important in Pan-African unity. Direct to the point, I can say that this one was an idea of people of African descent having common interests. They are scattered across the world from their homeland to other parts, and how important it is to unite as a single strong unity around the world. Pan-Africanist idea began to circulate in Black people around the world together with the African diaspora in the 19th century. In the United States, as we can see Pan-Africanists like Martin Delay, Alexander Cramer, and Edward Blyden. They both agreed with Delan's idea that African Americans should separate from United States of America, and a proposed place was Africa, in their thought that Africa was the best place to establish their nation. Yes, Delany, Clermont, and Blyden were important, but the father of modern Pan-Africanism was the influential thinker, W.E.B. Du Bois, who consistently advocated for the study of African history and culture. Du Bois's famous statement was made with clear knowledge that showed that many Africans suffered under the colonial rule from the Western and the white supremacy. We also have in Pan-African history our brother in peace, Marcus Garvey, who was among the most important Pan-Africanist thinkers of the first decade in 20th century as Jamaican-born Black nationalist. Garvey was one of the nationalists that engineered the cause of African independence with the positive attribute of Black people. The Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, created by Garvey, also had millions of members revoicing and making plans for the return or back to Africa procedure. Black Star Line was the shipping company established by Marcus Garvey in part of transport Black people back to Africa, as well as facilitate global Black commerce. The most important figure in late 1940s and early 1950s was Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, who believed that the eradication of colonial rule in Africa could be achieved if African nations could unite politically and economically. Kwame Nkrumah led the movement for the independence of Ghana, which came into fruition in 1957, where many African Americans cheered those developments that increased their supports and African supports into African nationalism that strengthened Pan-Africanism among the African nationalists, such as Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania. We speak about Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia, Agostinho Neto of Angola, Samora Machel of Mozambique, as well as others who are still in our mind as most African Pan-Africanists that helped Africa to reach the African Organization of African Union. After the World War II, the cause of African unity was largely confined to the concerns of African's continent. The fifth Pan-African Congress held in Manchester, England in 1945 indicated that the Pan-Africanist
Adrian Chamber.
Thank you. Let me finish up. The fifth Pan-African Congress held in Manchester, England in 1945 indicated that the Pan-African leadership had largely transferred from Pan-African American to African, as Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, and Padmo played the most prominent role, and the only African American present was only Du Bois. And the sixth Congress was held in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania in 1974 as formation of Organization of African Union in 1963, solidified African leadership. Thank you. I see that my time is up. Thank you for listening. I am because you are. Thank you so much, my sister Dushime. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, time is personal. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, John, you're welcome.
Thank you. It's a great evening in Uganda, and I believe most people in afternoon and morning hours. I greet you all in respective of the time zone. I am John Owori from Uganda, and as the topic Pan-Africanism says, I'm going to talk about the history of Pan-African movements, the key figures like Kwame Nkrumah and W.E.B. Du Bois. Before I go further, I would like to draw our attention into the history of Pan-Africanism, just a brief of it. And when we're looking at this, we see that the Pan-African movement is a significant history and political movement that are aimed to promote unity, solidarity, and self-determination among the people of Africa, African descendant worldwide. And when we look at that, we shall look at the brief overview of the history or the key figures of and its impact. And when we're talking about the key, I mean, when you're looking at the overview, we shall look at now the origin of the Pan-African movement. And when we're looking at the origin of Pan-African movement, we shall not throw away the W.E.B. Du Bois, in Kwame Nkrumah. We shall not throw away the Marcus Gray and all the other scholars. When we're looking at that, we see that Pan-African movement emerged in the late 19th and early 20th century as a response to the colonization and oppression of Africa and African descendants. We see that the first Pan-African Congress was actually held in the year 1900 in London. And this was organized by Henry Sylvester Williams, and not forgetting, actually he was a Trinidadian lawyer. Together after that, we shall look at also when W.E.B. Du Bois also coming up. We know that Du Bois was an advocate for the African unity. And also we see that Du Bois formally stated the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line, as many people has been mentioning that. But you know, that is what actually bringing our attention. What we look at now, what he has put in place and how does this influence and impact us, the Africans, and bringing the unity and solidarity in Africa. We see that in 1919, Du Bois helped in organizing the first Pan-African Congress in Paris, aiming to address the issue affecting people of Africa descendant worldwide. And this is something which is so significant to us, the African. Him being the scholar and civil rights activist, he played that pivotal role in bringing up the Africans and other African countries together and bringing that in mind. That's something which brings actually the hope and the unity amongst the Africans. Du Bois did not just end there. We see his influential African-American scholar, socialist, and historian. His academic work, including the Soul of Black Folks, that was in 1903, laid actually an intellectual foundation for Pan-Africanism. It was actually by exploring issues of racial identity and color heritage. And also, he also focuses on the global Black experience, organizer of the first Pan-African Congress. Du Bois did not only end there, we are seeing him also driving the force behind the organization of the first Pan-African Congress in Paris. This historical event actually brought together Africans and African America delegates to the discussion of common sense, including the colonialism, racism, and self-determination. So we are seeing the role that Du Bois played in bringing and uniting the Africans and bringing together the Africans. We're seeing him actually believing that Africans nationalists should have the right to self-determination and independence. And he actively supported the African leaders in their struggle for liberation. Looking at due to time, when we start talking about De Bruce, there's a lot that we can learn from him. So just to De Bruce's contribution to Pan-Africanism left lasting legacy and inspired generation of activist scholars and leaders. His work helped shaping the discourse on race, decolonization, and self-determination in the 20th century and beyond. And that is about De Bruce. A lot which we can know about it and we can learn about it. And when you're looking at Kwame Nkrumah and his activity in bringing together the unity and solidarity amongst the African Union,
Yes.
we see that Kwame Nkrumah played a prominent and influential role.
So, John, can you hear us? Okay, I think they're having some issues.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, yes, you have 30 seconds left. You can wrap up your report.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was just looking about, I was talking about Kwame Nkrumah. Where we're seeing him playing a crucial role in promoting Pan-Africanism and advancing the cause of African unity. That was during the mid-20th century. And here are the key facts, the roles that Kwame Nkrumah played. Just looking at that, we see that Kwame Nkrumah was the leader of the Gold Coast, that is in Ghana. It gained independence from the British colonials, and that was in the year 1957. One of the roles that Kwame Nkrumah played is after the Ghana's independence this served as a symbol of hope and empowerment for other African nations still under colonial control. We see that Kwame Nkrumah started to advocate for the Pan-Africanism, believing that African nations should unite to achieve their common goal. He often speaks of a united Africa, United States of Africa, and emphasized the importance of continental unity. He hosted the first conference of the independent African states. And in the year 1958, we see Kwame Nkrumah hosting the first conference, Independent African States, in Accra, Ghana. And this conference, we are seeing that is what brought African leaders from newly independent African nations and played a pivotal role, fostering the sense of unity and solidarity.
Yes.
Due to time, I would like to end there, and maybe if it is to share my document after the class, I may share for other use. Thank you. Thanks for the time, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you very much. That was our brother Ori John from Uganda. Thank you. I am because you are. Up next, we're going to have our yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity this afternoon. Let me take this opportunity to greet each and everyone on this platform. I join my colleague Africans today to speak on the topic, the history of the Pan-African movement, its key figures such as Kwame Nkrumah and W.E. Du Bois, and its impact on African unity. Pan-Africanism is a general term for various movements in Africa that have as their common goal the unity of Africa and the elimination of colonialism and white supremacy from the continent. On 23rd to 25th July 1900, London held the first ever Pan-African conference, which was organized by a barrister named Henry Sylvester Williams of Trinidad descent. It took place in Westminster Town Hall, now Caxton Hall. As 2013 comes to a close, we remember Dr. William Edward Bagot Du Bois, popularly known as W.E.B. Du Bois, the father of modern Pan-Africanism and a leading African-American intellectual of the 20th century. It is important for us to know that as 2013 comes to a close, we remember such a great man, the father of modern Pan-Africanism and leading Pan-African African-American intellectual of the 20th century, who died, unfortunately, in Ghana. As Africans, it's important for us to take such people as role models and then inculcate in us the spirit of Pan-Africanism. It is also important for us to know that Pan-Africanism has made some giant strides, achievements of Pan-Africanism. It helps to launch the struggle for rights and equality for Black people in the diaspora, although there are advocates of a return migration to Africa eventually, and especially after 1945. Black people in the diaspora focus on rights and justice where they live. It's very important to note that Pan-Africanism, it is true that the African continent was able to form its union, organizations of African unity, now African Union, with its first president, Excellency Kwame Nkrumah. It's also important to know that Nkrumah was a Pan-Africanist who saw the unification of Africa very key. In 1963, when the 32 heads of state met in Addis Ababa to form the OAU, Kwame Nkrumah was very clear that they have to lead this summit with a common army, one central bank with a common sense of purpose. But unfortunately, the 32 heads of state by then refused to adhere to Nkrumah's suggestion. And at the end, they formed the Organization of African Union, instead of coming together as one continent, forming United States of Africa. The Pan-Africanism was instilled in the first leaders of Africa, but unfortunately, that did not materialize. So as Africans, as Pan-Africanists, I want to take this platform to encourage each and every youth to stand by the principles of Pan-Africanism so that we can help move our continent forward. Thank you very much once again for the opportunity. I am because you are.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Shahid Kasim from Ghana. Thank you for that wonderful report. Time is not on our side. We are going to have the next speaker, Emmanuel Muke from Zambia. Yes, Emmanuel, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Good evening, every African child, the Black person of this continent of Africa. I am because you are. Am I audible?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I don't have a lot of things. I don't have a lot of things to share. I don't have a lot of things to talk. What I'm talking about today is about the African child mindset. Yeah, we know people have been leading and have been going through history. People have been going through a lot of things which our African leaders did for us to be where we are today, for our freedom to be there. So we as youths, as young people also, we need to do something whereby you're going to be recommended for, we're going to be remembered for. We need to be asking ourselves questions to say, what am I going to be remembered for as an African child? What am I going to advocate for as a Black child? These are the things we need to look onto. We need to change the mindset of the Black child on how they think on racism and xenophobia. We look onto issues affecting our youths mentally. You need to look upon the issues which are affecting our youths into their mental health issues, which is causing them suicide. And we need to advocate for these things as an African child. So I feel and I suggest there's a lot to do. We are not just supposed to be talking, but we need to implement. We need to start implementing. We are tired of getting speeches. We are tired of getting words of encouragement from our leaders, from other people. So this time, I think it's the right time. We need to stand up. We need to raise our voices. We need to advocate for what is right. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to share. And I wish it's a high time we can start implementing. And it's a high time we can start moving in our talk. You know, we need to walk the talk, not just working without action. So we need implementation. Yeah. So it starts with me. It starts with you. It starts from where you are in your country. We believe in better doing it right for the first time. Yeah, I am because you are. Thank you very much for this wonderful privilege you've given me.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Manuel Muke from Zambia. Yes, we are going to continue with the Pan-African healthcare class with Nana Akua. And if you would like to receive a shout out from her, you can turn on your camera. She really enjoys giving lectures while watching the Black Youth Offices. Yes, you're welcome, Nana Akua.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Greetings. I didn't shut my blinds. I hope the bright light is not too much, but John and Candace and Timothy, I can't tell if anybody else has their camera on. I don't see actual people in the, okay, I see a head, I think. But greetings, everyone. Good day to you all. Welcome to the class. Hey, is that Yvonne? Yvonne, you got glasses on? Where are my glasses at? You're looking different over there. I'll probably need mine soon. But greetings, everyone. You know, we had the Black Blockchain Summit last week, so I was not available. I don't think we didn't have class, right? We didn't have class. We did?
We didn't have class.
Oh, right. We didn't have class. Yeah. So yes, welcome back. We had some other things going on in Washington, D.C. at Howard University, my alma mater, where I attended. So we are going to pick up where I think we left off the week prior. But one thing I wanted to share, this has just sort of been on my spirit, as people say. So I preserve food. I don't know how popular this is, if at all, on the continent, but here in the States, we, especially if you're from sort of rural areas, country, we refer to it as, you know, areas where people still grow their own food. And we know that this is prevalent, and there are a lot of market people and farmers and such on the continent that of course still grow their own food. That's not necessarily so popular here in the States. But from where I'm from in Virginia, that was a very common thing. My grandfather had a farm, and grew a lot of vegetables, raised some animals as well. By the time I came along, though, I don't think he had any animals, but he had his share of corn and green beans and cabbage and turnip greens and, you know, different vegetables. So I do some gardening myself, not on the scale of what he does, but tomatoes and cucumbers and kale and collard greens, string beans. Something ate up all my string beans this year, though. I did not get but maybe 5. But I wanted to just kind of talk about the importance of food preservation, growing your own food and then preserving it. And I think that if you're in a place where electricity is not stable, whereas you can freeze things or keep them in that way, I think canning is an excellent option. So I have gotten into canning, and this is usually where you get like your mason jars, and there's pressure steam canning, and then there's hot water bath steaming, where you can can or preserve foods, right, in glass jars, and they will last for a year, 2, or more. So I was just reflecting this morning of how pleased I am with myself. I'm so proud of myself that I have been canning now for the last 2 years. Even though I grew up watching my mother can string beans and peaches and apples and just different foods, so that we would have, and mainly people do it so that they have it throughout the winter, like when certain foods or crops are not available, right, in winter seasons that we have here when it's cold. And, you know, we've had our last harvest in September, October, or what have you. But I was really reflecting on how I have not had to buy pasta sauce or applesauce or salsa or stewed tomatoes, green beans. There's so many things I've not had to buy at a store over this last year, and I won't have to this next year either. So as I finished up my canning for this season, I was quite happy. You know, I was not able to grow all the vegetables myself that I did preserve, but I bought them from a local farm by the case, and I was able to make my own pasta sauce. I was able to make my own applesauce, things that I use sort of, maybe not daily, but weekly in terms of cooking for my family. And so I think that that's pretty revolutionary. I think if we can get any, you know, wee bit closer to not having to depend on running to the store or to the market to buy everything that we need, I think we're winning. And so, and of course, to be able to grow it all yourself, I think is really, that's really the key. But until I get there, I'm really pleased, and I'm happy because I can know exactly what's in the stuff that I have made. So I can make applesauce and it not be any sucrose or white table sugar in it, right? I only use natural sweetener. You know, I can season it or flavor it to my liking. Same thing with the pasta sauce. There's no sugar in the, even though that's a debate as to whether sugar belongs in pasta sauce, right? But yes, most people, even if you don't add it to your canned sauce, you're going to make it with some sugar, I guarantee you. But I have used natural sweeteners in it and not your regular table sugar, and herbs that I have grown myself. So I really wanted to just sort of acknowledge that. I'm thankful for that. That's one of the things that I woke up being thankful for today. We all should find those things every day, right? A gratitude journal, something to be thankful for, something to be proud of yourself for, right? And I'm even expanding that to things that bring you joy. So like, I think we should take account of all of these things every day. You know, what's making you happy? What brought you joy? What are you thankful for, right? What are you proud of yourself for? I think all of these things really speak to our mental health, our emotional and spiritual well-being. And so we are talking about health. And I think these are those types of things that we have to pay very close attention to, and find those things and really find a way to shine, to smile. In my life, and anyone who knows me personally have known me over the years, you know, I definitely have been a rebel rouser in my earlier days, and can still choose violence, as they say, if necessary, even in this in this 50th year, right? But I usually, and I very purposefully choose joy. I choose to laugh. I choose to smile. I choose to be happy, to find the joy in things. But when necessary, and I need to speak for myself or stand up for myself and be maybe not so friendly, I can still do that as well. But I really put a lot of effort into finding joy and even chasing joy, right? Which is a book that I'm working on and releasing very, very soon. But I think it's important to find those things. And that's one of the things that I'm really happy about and proud of. And so I encourage you to look into growing foods. We've talked about this before when we talk about herbs and natural healing remedies from plants. I've talked about this before, but I really want to stress that. And I want to extend that to not just be herbs, because we know that herbs are medicine, but we know that food is also healing, and food is our first medicine as well. And herbs really are technically food. So it's all one and the same, but we have to learn how to grow our own foods and be able to heal ourselves, and then being able to preserve that food so that we can always have access to it. So I wanted to share that, even if you get into and then we also know that there's sometimes financial instabilities where we don't always have money to buy foods. Preserving foods is another way of kind of being certain that you'll have food for your family, and that you'll be able to go to the freezer or go to the cupboard, pantry, shelf, you know, whatever you call it, and be able to pull foods that you can make meals from. So in addition to canning, another thing I do is I store bulk items like beans and rice. So different beans, different rice. These are things that, as we know, are kind of staples, you know, things that we can always kind of make a meal out of if necessary, even if, and I'm not a big meat eater, I'm not vegetarian anymore, but we know that we don't have to have meats in our meals all the time. And we know that we can sustain ourselves with other types of foods and nourishment. And so just wanted to share that, something I'm really happy and pleased with myself about. So look into growing food, look into preserving food, whether it's freezing it, whether it's canning it. I think it's a good idea wherever you are in the world, whatever your socioeconomic status is. I think it's a good idea, because sometimes we know that things are very uncertain and unstable. And we know that we have to have our food and our medicine so that we can sustain living. There's already enough struggles and things to go through on a daily basis. If we at least know that we have our food supply stable, I think we're winning. So I think I want to, I think I pulled it up. So I think I want to talk a bit about, and I'm really struggling to remember, so forgive me. I don't know if we last talked about herbs, but where I do want to start, just in the spirit of what I was referring to in terms of growing foods, I think where I want to start today is about superfoods. So superfoods are those foods that we know are highly nutritive foods. These are the foods that we would choose if things are scarce, if we do not have, you know, our choices of different meals to prepare, but we know that these things will sustain us. Superfoods is going to be the place to go to. These are highly nutritive foods that have a lot of nutrients in them, and they're full of your vitamins, your minerals, your amino acids, your phytonutrients, all of these things that help sustain us. So I want that for a second. Well, actually, I probably can. Let's leave it there for just a second. And okay, give me a second. Mama is over here multitasking, so let's start with almonds. So, and of course, there are multiple lists that you may find online that will give you the top 10 or the top 15 or the top 20 superfoods. But these are some of the more common ones, and not all will you find all over, the world, but hopefully the ones that you can find, you can perhaps add into your diet just to add some layers of nutrition in what you may normally be eating. So almonds are considered a superfood. We know it's a rich source of calcium, very nutrient dense. It's even reported that you'll get more calcium than even your typical dairy products. So we know that this will be important. It also gives vitamin E. It's a healthy source of protein. So this is going to be a really good option for you as well. Broccoli rabi, this is a green leafy vegetable that we know is packed with potassium, iron, calcium, fiber, and a number of vitamins. So this is also something to add to you. I don't know if this is grown all over though, but if you're able to find it, this will help provide a number of health benefits to you, slowing the aging process, strengthening your bones, protecting against Alzheimer's. And let me just say a little word about that. Also growing up where I grew up, and sometimes when you are in areas where lower income or where you maybe don't have the best items in terms of where you're cooking your food, aluminum products are usually going to be used or found easily. I really encourage you to not use any aluminum products. We know that certain heavy metals, including aluminum, is linked to Alzheimer's. And so you'll have these really cheap utensils that you may cook with, whether it's aluminum pans or whether it's cheaper pans that are coated with certain types of metals, the cheaper serving forks or spoons that are used or made with aluminum. These things are linked to Alzheimer's and other types of brain functioning disorders. So really, really be mindful of getting a good, I like wooden utensils or definitely stainless steel is going to be a better option, but really try to avoid anything that's aluminum based. This will cause problems. And then, of course, if you can get the broccoli rabi, this is going to help protect against that. But any measures that we can do to help prevent that, we definitely want to embrace. Moving on to avocados, we know avocados gives us the healthy fats. We have spoken earlier weeks on healthy fats because we know that fats are an essential nutrient. And so we do know that we need healthy fats. Avocados is one excellent way to get our healthy fats that will have a healthy dose of what we call monounsaturated fats. These are the good fats or the healthy fats that we need in our diet. And we need these in our diet, if you recall, because there are certain vitamins that are fat soluble, which means they will only be absorbed in the body by having foods that have a fat that it can attach to and be absorbed and retained and utilized in the body. Raw milk I'm not a big dairy person. However, I think the emphasis here on raw milk, this is going to be the unpasteurized kind in certain parts of the world, though it is not easy or legal to get, because probably has more to do with how cows are maybe raised, and possible organisms that can cause disease have to be sort of pasteurized out, and it kind of be cleansed or purified, so to speak, not literally, but we know that in its raw form, from a nutritional standpoint, this is where you're going to find your rich sources of A, D, C, and B vitamins, and also your calcium, your magnesium, your phosphorus, minerals, as well as your essential fats that I kind of was talking about a bit with the avocados. So probably the easiest way to get raw milk would be in kefir. Usually you can find these in international markets or Indian markets, but for certain safety standards that they maybe have here in the US, you will not easily find raw milk, but this is on this list of a superfood. We know that wheatgrass is also another option in terms of giving us really, really good sources of iron and calcium, magnesium, certain vitamins like A, C, and E, and then amino acids that are our building blocks. And we know that wheatgrass is usually what you'll find used for chlorophyll, which is sort of what makes green vegetables green. This is what gives it all of its oxygen, all of these minerals that we've listed, and makes it really healthy. So some people will do wheatgrass shots just because it's so nutritive, that just a shot of wheatgrass juice will give you so many nutrients and will boost your energy that a lot of people will take wheatgrass shots or add it to their favorite juices. Salmon is another, this is another healthy fat. This will provide your omega-3 fatty acids. So this is a good fish to include into your diet. Flax seeds, this is another good food that you can add to smoothies or salads, trail mixes, grind up into a meal. I added into my steel cut oats. So I make what I call sort of a super oatmeal that I usually will put dates as the sweetener, and I'll put flax seeds and walnuts and blueberries. And so we know that flax seeds will give us vitamin B6, and it'll give us a number of minerals like phosphorus, copper, folate, magnesium, and manganese. And I just mentioned blueberries. So we know that blueberries are rich in different phytonutrients, vitamin C, and fiber. Cinnamon. This we know has a lot of health benefits as well. One of my favorite spices just for the aroma. I use it a lot in spiritual work, but also in cooking. Cinnamon is really good for fighting urinary tract infections. It's good and soothing for the stomach, improves brain function. It lowers your bad cholesterol, promotes healthy glucose metabolism. So of course, diabetics will use this, or people who have imbalances in their blood sugar levels. Cinnamon is an excellent food to add. Sweet potatoes is the last on this list. We know that this is going to be your better option for a root vegetable or potato. It's slightly less glycemic than other potatoes, but in addition to that, it's loaded with these nutrients: beta carotene, B6, vitamin C, fiber, and potassium. So definitely, if you can replace your regular white baking or russet potato with sweet potatoes, this is going to be a good option for you. There are other superfoods that are more like seeds that you can add. Usually people will add these, or either crush them and add them into smoothies, or maybe yogurt or fruit salads, cereals, like hot cereals, things of that nature. Acai is a berry. They pretty much have a whole business here what's it called? Pure Raw, which is like a juice bar. And you have all these people that get these acai bowls, right? And so the acai bowls is pretty much the acai fruit as the base. And then they'll add all of these other fruit toppings, whether it's coconut or granola or berries or bananas or what have you. But the acai berry itself has cancer fighting properties. It fights off heart disease. So a lot of people are adding this to their diets, whether in a fruit bowl or whether adding it into a smoothie. Goji berries, same type of thing. This is full of vitamin C. It helps boost the immune system. So again, people will add this in their smoothies and their other cereals and foods. Cocoa powder, we know that this is going to be good for lowering your blood pressure, improving your blood flow. This will enhance blood flow to your heart and to your brain. So this will be a good additive for you. Seaweed, we know that anything coming from the sea is going to be high in minerals. So this is definitely going to help you in terms of boosting up your calcium, your magnesium, your iron, your potassium, your iodine, your zinc. So this is going to be good. It's an acquired taste, but you can certainly add it into soups and stews. Or some people will just eat it as a snack. You know, the dried seaweed sheets, people will just eat that as a snack. Again, it's an acquired taste. So usually adding it to some noodles or some kind of soup is going to be the easiest way to consume that. Chia seeds have also become very popular. We know that this is packed with those good fats, the omega-3 fatty acids that we've mentioned earlier. This is also high in fiber and calcium. So chia seeds, most people are adding these to their smoothies. You have some mothers that are grinding it up and adding it into their baby's milk or cereal. To just enhance their immune system and get all the good nutrients from that, especially if they have chosen to not give their child any dairy or cow milk. Mangosteen is also on this list. We know that this has some anti-cancer properties. It's also good for inflammation. So same type of thing. This is a fruit that people will either add to smoothies or eat in salads and add to other food recipes. And then I think lastly on this list is maca powder. Maca powder boosts the immune system, helps with the libido, right? Helps increase your energy and your endurance. So a lot of people are using this in sex tonics, but also just in energy tonics. So it helps fight off fatigue, helps regenerate and repair tissue if that has become damaged. So this is very healing and boosting to the body as well. So these are the superfoods that I wanted to mention. And again, even if you started with, say, cinnamon or blueberries or anything that you can easily add to your diet, start utilizing these foods because they're highly nutritive and they're going to give you an extra boost to whatever your diet may be. And when people are usually trying to figure out, okay, I want to be healthier, where can I start? If you're not ready to, say, remove meat from the diet, or if you're working on removing sugar, which I think is probably just as important or more important to work on as opposed to meat. If you're not even ready to do those elimination types of diets, add some of these superfoods to your diet. And that is a good place to start, even if you're not ready to remove certain things. And of course, we know that we can remove sodas or carbonated drinks or certain sweets. If you're going to do sweets, do natural sweets. You know, that's the whole goal with me making, for example, applesauce that doesn't have sugar in it, but only natural sweeteners. Start doing those things where you can easily adjust and replace certain things that we know are not great for us, while adding these types of superfoods that will give us added nutrition into our daily regime. So I don't know if we have any questions here because Oh, there are no questions. Are there no questions? Is the chat thing empty? I don't think I have ever seen that. That is interesting. Okay, so no, so no questions. Well, very well. I will pick up next week with, I think we'll talk about stress management next week. So what I'll ask in advance, because I kind of pose the questions, think about the things that bring you stress. If it's your daily life, if it's work, if it's personal, if it's relationship wise, we'll talk about the different categories of stress, but I'd like you to have in mind some of those things so that we can kind of have a nice exchange with that discussion. So I am out of time. Thank you all for joining. And as always, I bid you good health and peace.
Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua, for this wonderful lecture. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Yes, we are going to continue with the Pan-African history class with Dr. Tyrone, right? Yes,
yes,
Dr. Wright.
Hi. You'll see me in 1 second. I'm getting in position. Welcome, everyone. So you had a little break and a weekend off. So we're back. So today I was really debating about if I was going to go with what I normally, what's on, whatever you have on the syllabus, or if I was going to give you something that is contemporary, because I think there's a lot of things going on right now. And you'll see me in like 2 minutes. There are a lot of things that are going on in the world right now that are relevant to our subject matter, Pan-African history and organizing. And I think it's important to discuss because I think politically we're in an unusual moment in Africa, in the world, and Africa is showing up in a way that is historic. I personally, and you could say you heard it here first, I think this is our second wave of African independence happening right now. And I think it's important to recognize that. There was the UN General Assembly is taking place, or has taken place in the recent past. As some of you may know, leadership from all over the world comes to the UN, descends on the UN, and shares a common agenda in the program that takes place there every year, actually. Sorry, you're going to see me in 1 second. I just wanted to get my camera together. So I wanted to share the address by the president of Guinea, who is young leadership, and he gave a phenomenal address. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I know we have copyright issues when I decide to show some video, but I want to share some of it because it is a rare moment in time. It is important. You all are living in it. And I think he invokes not just what some of our past leaders on the African continent represent, but he absolutely addresses the contemporary issue and the fact that the posture of African leadership at this moment in time can be different with this new generation. And I love that, and you should know that. Some of you had asked if I was going to do something on Niger, and I am going to do something, but regionally, it addresses you know, some of the existing political position of African leadership that you've seen in the media, on the world stage at this moment in time, right now. So let me get my camera together. I wanted to make sure I close all this other stuff. And like I said, I'm not going to show the whole thing, but I am going to show. So I am going to show a significant part, the important part. So let me put it that way. So this is, you'll see me in a second, but let me see if I can do this with my camera on. All right, well, maybe not. Okay, this is Mamadi Doumbouya, and he's the president of the National Committee for Reconciliation and Development and the president of the Republic of Guinea, right? So he addressed the general debate at the 78th session in the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York, September 19th to the 26th. So it's still going on, actually. And so his address was a couple of days ago, I think about 2-3 days ago. And really what he is addressing is the coup. He is currently the president, but really the interim president, okay? And as some of you know, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Niger, some other countries are involved in responding to the puppet governments that exist in these nations on the African continent, in particular the Sahel. And so for not the first time ever, but in contemporary times, I would say that this is an African Spring. This is going to be something that's going to redefine how Africa relates to the world and how the world must relate to Africa and African leadership around the resources and the well-being of the people. I think that this younger generation, as he notes, it's 1.300 plus people on the African continent. Okay, and just to give you an idea what that means, the United States is made up of merely 300 million. The African continent has 1 billion more people than the United States, and that's in spite of everything, right? In spite of waging biological warfare, everything. And majority are under the age of 30. And that means that this young man, and he is a young man, and others who see what he's doing have the power to reshape how African people show up in the world and demand that the world responds. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to see you and talk to you for 2 seconds. But I just thought that this was really important. And I'm cutting into it because I don't want to show the whole thing. So I'm starting at the 7-minute mark, and we'll probably try to do, how many minutes can I do? Because it's not really that long. It's 20 minutes, but how many minutes can I do before you have to like stop the recording, Yvonne?
I think since it's 20 minutes, we can try and see.
Oh, okay. So I'm definitely doing less than that. Okay, so no problem. Yes, it's definitely less than that because it's only 20 minutes is addressed to begin with. And so I'm going to do less than would be less than the amount of time that would be problematic. Okay. So let me. Hold on. Okay, I'm stopped here because I did something. Okay. All right, here we go. Here I am. Okay. All right, here I am. And so I'm going to go to that video, but I did want to say hi and get on camera for 2 seconds. And I'm going to go to the video where you will be able to watch him at the UN General Assembly. And so the things that I want to just highlight, because you have learned about them already, is the idea of Pan-Africanism, unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation, right? 1. 2, this concept of, you know, you've heard a lot of things about Russia engaging, the Eastern Bloc engaging Africa at this moment in time. He's going to address this. He's going to say that we are not under the tutelage of any European nation. We are in fact pro-African. We are not anti-anyone. We're not pro or anti-anyone else. We are pro-Africa, period. Okay. And I think it speaks to 2 things. 1, the purpose, the objective of unity, which is happening, but also this subtext or not so subtext about Africa's relationship with the West, the Eastern Bloc, Russia in particular. And it's important to note that he's obviously saying, in the way that so many have completely adopted the Eastern line, we're not under anyone's tutelage. This is all of our own volition. And it's a moment where the nations are taking back what rightfully is theirs. Okay. So let me just go to it, and maybe we have a little conversation afterwards where you can address any questions you may have or issues. Okay. So let me just, I'm going to share my screen. Hold on. I'm laughing because I always forget I have glasses. I must wear glasses, and but I have not. Oh, look at that. I'm sharing my screen. I'm not even, okay. And I'm in denial about it. Can you see the image of the president of Guinea on here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay.
To several factors, including broken promises, the lethargy of the people.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna take it back just a little bit. I'll go to the 7 mark.
List, but we believe that the transitions underway in Africa are due to several factors.
Okay.
Including broken promises, the lethargy of the people, and leaders tampering with constitutions with the sole concern of remaining in power to the detriment of collective well-being. Today, the African people are more awake than ever and more than ever determined to take their destiny into their own hands. The unequal distribution of wealth creates endless inequalities, famine, and abject poverty, which make the daily lives of our populations increasingly difficult. These inequalities are part of the causes for the events that endanger our peaceful coexistence above all. When the wealth of a country is in the hands of an elite, while newborns die in hospitals due to a lack of incubators, it is not surprising that in such conditions, we are seeing transitions in order to respond to the profound aspirations of the people. Africa, ladies and gentlemen, is suffering from a governance model that has been imposed on it. A model that is certainly good and effective for the West, which developed it over the course of its history, but which is difficult to incorporate and adapt to our realities, our customs, and our environment. Alas, I have to say that the graft did not take. I know that when I say this, many will immediately say to themselves, oh, another warmonger who wants to wring the neck of democracy, or another soldier who wants to impose his dictatorship. However, I want to say very clearly, without hypocrisy, without pretense, eye to eye, we're all aware that this democratic model that you have so insidiously, skillfully imposed on us after the La Baule summit in France, something you've been imposing almost religiously, this model does not work. Various economic and social indices demonstrate this plain and clear. This is not a value judgment on democracy itself. Believe me, this is just taking stock of the situation. It's a balance sheet. Over several decades of chaotic experimentation with this model in our environment, we can make this observation. This was a period full of nothing but political games. And this, of course, has been to the detriment of what is essential, namely the economy and the local processing of our natural resources. Allow me to take this truth exercise a little further. Through my short but very intense experience of managing a state, Guinea, I have come to better understand the extent to which this model has, above all, contributed to maintaining a system of exploitation and plunder of our resources by others, and a rampant corruption of our elites. National leaders who have often been granted democratic labels based on their acquiescence or their capacity for selling off the resources and the property of their people, or perhaps their ease in giving in to the pseudo recommendations and injunctions of the great powers.
I object to calling them the great powers, but Western powers.
I must confess in this regard that everything that I am facing goes beyond all imagination. These are the same people who profess democracy, transparency, who denounce poor governance and corruption, who dictate the rules. It is they who, behind the scenes, very discreetly and underhandedly, are increasing pressure to make us cede our national wealth through unconscionable leonine contracts. I understand certain leaders and some of my predecessors who, because they possess certain weaknesses, because they were under pressure, or because they had skeletons in their closets, or particularly because they had a political agenda, gave in to what was being asked of them.
Let me stop here for a second. And what he's talking about is saying that in the past, there was leadership that had to give in to Western powers because they had a short way to say it, contradictions, right? Skeletons in their closet, personal issues, weaknesses, egos. So bourgeoisie elitism that let them feel comfortable about being in the bed with the West while exploiting the resources and the people of the nation, so on and so forth.
I understand them, even if I do not approve. In some cases, I was even reminded that if I had a political agenda, I would be less comfortable carrying out the reforms that my government and I are tackling. One thing is certain. We have but one concern, and that is the well-being of the people and living together. This is our priority. This is why the transition I lead has chosen to focus methodically on clear objectives in a precise order: the social, the economic, and the political. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I wear my uniform in service to my people, and I would be grateful if you would respect that oath. An oath to keep ourselves a respectable distance from divisions of all kinds that many attempt to fuel in our countries. The Sahel is undergoing one of the most serious crises in its very long history. But it has the resources that are required to face it. Its legendary sense of diplomacy must be unleashed so that we can speak to each other without interference. It is for this reason that ECOWAS, whose vocation was economic, let's stop getting involved in politics and favor dialogue. The African people are tired, exhausted by the categorizations with which everyone wants to box us in. Africa's population is young. It did not experience the Cold War. It did not experience the ideological wars that have shaped the world over the last 70 years. That is why we, Africans, are insulted by the boxes, the categories, which sometimes place us under the influence of the Americans, sometimes under that of the British, sometimes the French, or the Chinese, or the Russians, and even the Turks. We are neither pro nor anti-American. We are neither pro nor anti-Chinese, nor pro or anti-French, nor pro or anti-Russian, nor pro or anti-Turkish. We are simply pro-African, that is all. Placing us under the influence of this or that power is an insult. It is contempt and racism towards a continent of more than 1,300,000,000 people. It is important that in this prestigious and influential assembly, we understand clearly and definitively that the era of the old Africa is over.
Mm-hmm.
With a population of more than 1 billion Africans, around 70% of whom are young people who are completely free, open-minded, open to the world, and determined to take their destiny into their own hands. The time has come to realize that the structures, the rules from the post-war era, established in the absence of our states, which did not yet exist at the time, are obsolete. This is the end of an unbalanced, an unjust era where we had no say in the matter. It is time to take our rights into account and to let us take our proper place, but also, and above all, it is time to stop lecturing us and to stop treating us with condescension like children. Rest assured that we're old enough to know what is good for us. We are mature enough to define our priorities, to design our own models, which are in line with our identity, the daily reality of our countries and our populations, in line with what we are, quite simply. We would be very grateful to you if you trust us and let us run our business as you have allowed in certain regions of the world, as you have allowed in Asia, in the Near and the Middle East, to cite only a few. This infantilization that we have experienced has had the worst effects on African youth who are now emancipated. In this context, we are all challenged and called upon to carry out a better analysis of the situation with a view to initiating and pursuing new policies for the benefit of all. The international community must look to Africa with new eyes. It must now engage in genuine cooperation with Africa in a spirit of win-win partnership. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Okay. Right on time, actually. So he finished up. It's, what is it? It's 11:43. I don't know what this is saying. Okay. I have my screen text, the font so big so that when I forget to put on my glasses, I don't like sound totally illiterate. It was way too big and, anyway, crowded. So I couldn't even see what it was saying. All right. So I think that I can see we're down to 11 folks. It's the end. Thank you all who stayed to the end. Hopefully you get what was going on in there. Very powerful statement by the president of Guinea. Just to put in a historical context, the historical, one of the biggest historical figures in the context of Guinea was Ahmed Sékou Touré, very progressive. However, there were many things that happened in Guinea over the years, and ultimately in the recent past, he speaks of the political removal of the last administration. So he is the interim president. He is a military person, but he's saying that we have come to the consensus in this part of Africa that we will no longer be utilized. And you are seeing a Pan-African alliance amongst nations in the Sahel. And that's very important. This is real life Pan-Africanism playing out on a continental level. So we've talked about Pan-Africanism expressed by individuals, Pan-Africanism expressed by organizations, Pan-Africanism expressed on the continent of Africa through organizations that were vehicles to promote unity. We haven't gotten to some of the other things that we're going to discuss in terms of initiatives that were expressions of Pan-Africanism, but this right here with, you know, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Niger, so on and so forth, you're about to see a Pan-African, or you're seeing a Pan-African alliance amongst young African leadership who are ousting political puppets that were placed there from the West. And it is a significant time. It's an exciting time. We're going to be talking about this. Anybody who understands the political landscape in Africa and the role of Africa in the world will be talking about this for decades to come. But it's a very important time because we're seeing what we refer to historically, what we theorize about come into fruition, even if it's regionally. If you notice, there's a moment, I'm not sure if I started it when he says this, but there is a moment where he makes mention of the fact that they would ask ECOWAS to stay out of it. ECOWAS is not a political force. That's not their role to be involved in the politics of the nations in the region. And so, you know, it's very interesting. I will post the lecture in the Telegram group if you want to continue to watch it from the beginning, if you want to go back to the beginning and watch his full lecture, but I think it's very significant. Any questions, problems, comments? No? Okay, we gotta. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah. So no questions, but I will post that in the group, that particular address to the UN General Assembly. And I will see you all next week. Okay? I am because we are.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Wright, for the wonderful lecture.
Thank you.
Also like to thank everyone that stays until the end. Stay safe. Yes, Candice, I will get back to you regarding how you can join the Telegram class. Yes, stay safe. I am because you are. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.